Hello, my name is Andrew Sheldon for the Oklahoma Progressive Network, and I am joined today by Cheryl Poole, District 1 candidate for the Oklahoma City School Board. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and why you were running?
Um, I retired from Oklahoma City Public Schools in 2010. Uh, Oklahoma City Public Schools had been my longest teaching home. I taught school for 36 years total. I've done some other things since 2010 and decided that I really wanted some kind of volunteer opportunity. And then when the school board seat became available, I thought, that's where my expertise lies. I need to return to what I know, what I'm familiar with. So that's kind of what prompted me to do this. I grew up in Oklahoma City Public Schools. I graduated from John Marshall. It's been a few years back that I graduated from John Marshall, but also went to junior high, as we called it at that point. There were no middle schools, and elementary school in Oklahoma City Public Schools. So I really have an Oklahoma City background.
Thank you for that. So, if you don't mind, I'd like to just jump right into the questions. Right now, charter schools and voucher programs are hot button items. Everybody is talking about them and has an opinion about them. What is your stance on charter schools and what is your stance on voucher programs?
Oklahoma City currently has 11, maybe 12 charter schools, and I'm fine with that. We have charter schools based on the need that has been there. As far as new charter schools coming along, I would have to look at the plan. I would have to look at who the target audience is going to be for a new charter school. As far as vouchers go, I'm a public school person. I cannot hardly stand the thought of taking public school monies and putting it into a voucher system. So my obvious answer to that is I'm totally opposed to the voucher system.
Okay. You just mentioned taking money away from public schools. The budget is a big thing right now. Everybody is aware of the budget crisis that we have. What is your plan to help recruit and retain high quality teachers in spite of our budget crisis?
I think there are a lot of things that can be done in that area. I have a concern that we haven't perhaps looked at our higher education institutes and what kind of teacher programs are being offered, especially in the area of urban teaching. Uh, are teachers being trained to come out and work in urban schools? Honestly, when I student taught in Oklahoma City Public Schools, and I graduated from OU. There was a program that I applied to be in at OU, and it was called Cooperative Urban Teaching Education. So I had specific training to come into an urban setting. So I think that's one thing that we need to look at. Getting these kids when they're young involved in the urban schools. I have been concerned about the fact I was in one particular situation in Oklahoma City for 13 years. I had 4 student teachers in my 13-year time. Yet right now I know a teacher in Edmond who has been in Edmond for 9 years, and she's had 9 student teachers. And Edmond is not our urban district so much, but obviously we're sending student teachers into those kind of environments rather than the urban environments. So that's one thing. As far as recruiting, retaining teachers, I think it has to do with the climate of Oklahoma City Public Schools, the climate of each building, the appreciation of teachers, the value of the profession. We have got to recognize that. And teachers that work in great buildings with good climates tend to stay in those buildings. They love their jobs. And I know a whole handful of those people right now. I mean, Oklahoma City does have some wonderful schools where people are happy.
Um, School performance is also an issue that people do talk about occasionally, especially when referencing charter schools and such, because they think that our school system is underdeveloped or underperforming. So, how will you hold schools accountable for their performance?
Well, again, I think a lot of that has to do with administration. I think that's holding administration accountable for the job that they're hired to do. That goes from the top down to the principal. I mean, principals are the ones who are directly involved. Principals set the tone for a building. Principals are the ones observing how their teachers are performing. Now, I think as a board member, yes, there needs to be oversight on that. But in my feeling and my belief, that's why we have principals in buildings. That is their job. That's what they need to be doing, is directing. And I had a situation where a teacher came into a building I was working in, perhaps wasn't the strongest teacher, but when provided with enough mentoring and guidance, this teacher has just become phenomenal. Just phenomenal. So you put people in the right environment, they're going to flourish.
Okay. So, do you have a specific plan for underperforming schools, or just leave it to the administration as kind of?
I don't know that I can say I have a specific plan. I am right now not a big fan of the AF grading system. I think that whole system is flawed. I do believe that steps are being taken to iron out some of that. I think when that's done, when we see a new situation, then possibly it can be looked at. But I think there has to be a combination of perhaps the A through F grading and evaluation from administrators as far as their own teachers and their own building. And from there, then we work to make good decisions.
Okay. So as you know, some schools have gone to a 4-day school week. What is your position on schools adjusting to 4 days?
I am totally against that. Having taught in Oklahoma City Public Schools, I can only imagine what that does to a family. I mean, a lot of the population in Oklahoma City Public are either single working parent or two working parents, and now all of a sudden you have 3 of your children home on either Friday or Monday that you have to go to work. And so then what happens to those kids? Well, probably they're left on their own. And I just don't think that's, to me, the school is the safe place. That is the second home. And if kids aren't at home with supervision, they should be at school with supervision.
So that's actually a pretty good segue into what I was going to ask you next. There were a lot of reports last year, in the last couple of years, but specifically last year, internal reports from the school district itself, as well as the Oklahoma Advisory Committee to the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights and their school-to-prison pipeline, highlighting the fact that students with disabilities, minority students, they seem to be targeted more for disciplinary action. So what are your thoughts on the use of disciplinary action in regards to minority students or students with disabilities?
I don't know that Oklahoma City has honestly invested maybe what they need to invest as far as working on discipline issues. My last experience was a middle school level, and what would happen in some cases is a student is suspended, so you've got a 3-day suspension for whatever the act might have been. So they're basically out of school doing what? Being held accountable for what? I don't know. And then they're back in after those 3 days. Well, first of all, in that 3-day time, there's been a lot of education go on that kiddo has missed. And they have probably been at home unsupervised. That's kind of back to the 4-day school week deal. And so they've been home unsupervised. There's been no gain educationally. We have got to solve that problem. That is a major issue.
Well, you mentioned school suspensions. So the Oklahoma State Senate recently introduced Senate Bill 81 that lowers the threshold for student suspensions from the 6th grade down to the 3rd grade. Are there ways that we can actually improve or reduce the disciplinary actions that happen in the schools?
Well, there is no way we should be suspending kids that are 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. I mean, maybe if they come to school with a handgun, maybe. But I'm like, there has got to be a better way to solve these problems. I think Oklahoma City is not the only huge urban area that has discipline issues. So why are we not looking at other successful programs in other urban areas where discipline has come under fire? You know, what are other places doing? How are they handling those problems?
Okay. Well, Cheryl, we do want to thank you for coming out and seeing us today. That's all the questions that I have, so I'm going to leave it open to you. Are there any final thoughts that you wish to share with the voters?
Probably a final thought I would have, a great concern I have in all of the budget cuts. Oklahoma City took a cut of 200 teachers last year. That's drastic. So it meant larger classrooms. But in that cut, it also took out a lot of programs. And I am a huge arts advocate. We must have in our schools. We've got to have the arts. The visual arts, music, PE, and especially at the elementary level, elementary principals have been faced with picking, which all schools have PE. That's a law. But then they've been faced with having to pick between, will we have a music program or will we have an art program? And I think I am so on board to get back in and get involved. We have got to get those programs back in our schools. It's statistically proven that children are much more successful when they have a broad spectrum of an arts background. So that would be one of my big issues.
All right. So this has been Cheryl Poole, District 1 candidate for Oklahoma City Public School Board. Cheryl, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.